Okay, so the Lord gave me a real blessing today. I was really distraught, and I took the family out, went to the arcade. But with everything going on this past week, I was absolutely miserable, and I needed something from the Lord. So I sat in the car and I prayed. I started rebuking evil spirits, and I asked the Lord to just love me and deliver me from the state of mind. And I've been pretty bitter about with my wife. Circumstances obviously are not too good in my house, and we don't have running water. Everybody's got excuses for neglecting things that we're supposed to be doing right. But when you're a God-fearing person, when you are born again, really doesn't matter the circumstances. We don't have excuses. And women represent the church, and men represent Jesus Christ. That's why Jesus Christ says that he came for his bride. We're his bride, and we are to be without spot. And so the whole point of the Christian life is to have intimacy with Jesus Christ. That is to commune with him. That is to get in his word, to have alone time, to study, to show ourselves approved, a workman worthy of our meat, right? That's intimacy with Jesus Christ, and that's what produces life. It produces revelation. It produces belief, produces faith. And the Christian life, or the husband and the wife, the marriage is a representation of that. And that's why when a husband and a wife are intimate, they come together, they become one, and they produce life. And the husband is built for that intimacy. Husbands are imputed with this sex drive that they need fulfilled, because it represents Jesus Christ, and his sex drive towards his church, that intimacy he needs from us. He requires it, you know. And it's funny, when you first get married, there's no problem there with that intimacy. It's the wife really goes out of her way to show her husband how much she loves him, and she puts effort into it and picks out outfits and all this. Everybody knows about this stuff, right? I don't have to go into detail about it. But the intimacy is a wonderful thing when you're first married, just like when you're first saved. It's just all you want is Jesus Christ. It's all about the Lord, and we pursue him, right? Because the Lord wants to be pursued. But after you've been saved for a while, everybody starts getting a little too comfortable. That's what happens with a marriage. You get comfortable with each other, things stop being exciting. And the woman, because the woman represents the church, and the Lord says that the woman is the weaker flesh, right? She's going to be more susceptible to the world and how she feels. And she's not going to want to do the right thing based on how she feels, because the woman is just susceptible to this. And that represents us, the woman. We are the woman. We're the church. And Jesus Christ is a husband, and he wants that affection, and he wants that intimacy, and he wants to be pursued. And let me tell you, I feel like if I have to hound my wife for intimacy, I just feel disrespected. That's how I feel about it. I feel unloved, unwanted. I'm already suffering all kinds of persecution out in the world. And I come home and I just feel like, sometimes I feel like, why did I even get married? This woman, and we all have these issues, right? It's not, my case isn't anything special. But the husband wants to be pursued. The husband wants to feel like he did when he first got married, and so does Jesus Christ. And it's disrespectful to the husband for him to have to run after his bride. And Jesus Christ, see, he doesn't pursue. After you're born again and you're married, it is the obligation of the church to pursue Jesus Christ. He doesn't pursue the church. He doesn't run after the church after they're wed. And if the church disrespects Jesus Christ by not being intimate for whatever reasons, and there's lots of reasons, let me tell you, then Jesus Christ, he doesn't run after his bride. What happens is he'll send his bride trials, tribulations, and discipline his bride that way. But he doesn't run after her because he needs to be pursued. And that's how the Lord created the man and the woman and the husband and the wife in marriage. The husband really should be pursued, and the husband feels disrespected. The husband feels he doesn't feel like a man when the wife isn't pursuing him, and he has to take what he needs. And what I've noticed is the wife, the number one killer of intimacy that is involved with the wife is the fact that she's too fat. She has stretch marks. She doesn't feel good. She has wrinkles. A woman will fall into this vice of self-loathing, where she doesn't want to have intimacy with her husband anymore because she's just concerned with what's going on with herself, and so she feels like she kind of has a get out of jail free card from fulfilling this obligation to her husband, because she's got this self-loathing going on, and she has all these problems and yada yada yada, right? And isn't that how the church treats Jesus Christ today? They stop being intimate with Christ because they put all their cares on the world, and they have entered into this self-loathing, right? And that's the problem with these pastors teaching Christians that they're not perfect, and that we're all sinners, and we're always going to be, we're never going to be good enough for the Lord, and don't worry, he loves you just as you are, but you're never going to be perfect. And that's what these Reformed churches out here teach. They tell the people this, and that's a lie from the pit of hell, let me tell you. Because if you're not perfect, then Jesus Christ is not happy with you. But see, perfection isn't about your stretch marks. It's not about how fat you are, your wrinkles, or this or that. It's simply being obedient to the very small things that the Lord has asked you to be. It's just simply by simple obedience. And the Lord does not require more than what we are able to handle. And the scriptures say that. These coyotes are creepy sounding. There's a lot of them out here. So we really don't have an excuse to fall into this vice of self-loathing, because the Lord is pleased with us. I don't care what my wife looks like. I think she's just as beautiful today as she was when she was 20 years old. But this self-loathing and all this nonsense, it's not my wife's beauty that is hindering my relationship. It's this self-loathing, which I have to say probably most women will go through. And that's what the church does, and it's because the church does that to the Lord. Oh, I'm not good enough, and we give our, because we're convincing ourselves that we're sinners and will never attain to the standards that the Lord has set for us. That provides a way for us to indulge the flesh. When the disciples say to abstain from anything that entangles you with the flesh, And that mentality is what gives us the ability to self-loathe and to believe that we're not perfect, and Christ's atonement wasn't completely sufficient for our life. And so because we have this mentality, and these pastors are telling us that we'll never be perfect and we'll never be good enough, then we just basically give up. We convince ourselves we're sinners, and we indulge the lust of the flesh, and we stop being intimate with our husband. That's what happens. That's why we are to press on towards perfection, for perfection. The Lord Jesus Christ says, "Be holy as I am holy." And you don't have to be perfect in the flesh. It doesn't matter if you're doing this or you're doing that, or as long as you're being faithful with very little, the very little bit that the Lord has told you to do, the few convictions that you have in your life, as long as you're being faithful and you're adhering to those little convictions, then you are perfect in God's eyes. And if you're 18 years old and you still got a heap of lust of the flesh to conquer, but you're doing what you're supposed to do today, you're just as beautiful then as you are to the Lord when you're 80, and you've conquered all the lusts of the flesh, and you have all kinds of, you're just as beautiful then, you're just as perfect then. You get me? It's simply just being faithful in little and not self-loathing, right? Because that's when we get trapped in this vice and we fulfill the lust of the flesh, and we allowed the world to overcome us, and we stop being intimate with our husband. And that's what happens. What I notice with women is they have a bunch of kids, and then they get on this, "Oh, well, I don't feel good, or I don't look good, and I'm fat." And I'm like, and the husbands are like, "Listen, you're perfect. The only thing that you could improve on is pursuing me, because I don't feel like a man much anymore, because you don't treat me the way you did when you were younger. You used to put some effort into intimacy, and now I feel like I don't even matter no more." And it's bad enough you go out into the world and you get all kinds of persecution and you suffer from these religious people, and you come home and you're like disrespected in your own house. And it ain't because the woman ain't beautiful enough. It's because the woman's self-loathing and making up all kinds of excuses, right? I mean, if you can sit on Facebook for 2 hours or watch TV for 2 or 3 hours, you can certainly get a little gussied up and give your husband some attention, can't you? Would that be such a horrible thing? And it's not like we don't enjoy it. It's not like you women don't enjoy being with your husbands and being intimate. The only problem really is you're just listening to the devil and making all kinds of excuses to not fulfill what you were created for, intimacy with your husband. And that's the problem with the church today. Fall into these fits of depression and self-loathing, and then because we're having a big pity party for ourselves, then we feel like the Lord won't mind so much if we're not being intimate with him, right? Oh, because he can see that I'm suffering. No, it's not how it works. When we're created here, we have an obligation to fulfill. And if we're not fulfilling our obligation, and what happens, this is the problem. If the husband isn't getting what's required, then the husbands get bitter, okay? And it's really difficult. The scriptures tell us, husbands, not to be bitter with the wives, all right? And so the wives will cease to be blessed by the husbands, because the husbands will just be focused on trying not to be bitter against their wives. you know, and then there's tension in the house, and the husband gets moody, and, you know, the husband doesn't want to do anything for the wife. And that's exactly what happens with the Lord's church. You know, you stop pursuing the Lord, the husbandman. Well, the husbandman doesn't continue to bless you. You know, the blessings stop, and life only gets worse for everybody. You know, it doesn't get better. And until we get right with the Lord and we seek Him out and pursue Him and commune with Him, then no amount of self-loathing or pity of yourself is going to help the situation or appease the Lord, you know. So, you know, the marriage between a husband and wife absolutely represents the marriage of the Lord and His church. And everybody has obligations. And if we don't meet those obligations, then the whole house suffers, you know. So I just found this a real blessing. I was in turmoil this morning, and the Lord kind of gave this to me, so I wanted to share it.